Right, thanks very much. I'm conscious that everyone's got so much to say and really great to get to the Q&A, so I'm going to try and keep sort of quite a few brief points about what the Foreign Office are doing. First of all, I'd like to say, Ruth mentioned that I was a journalist. I was actually a journalist before Twitter, which means I had a completely different type of experience in the media, where I actually had to use contacts and drive to places and speak to people. And the sort of information revolution since then is just, it's such a different environment, and it's been really interesting to join the Foreign Office and work in their communications and think of all the challenges that this whole sort of information revolution presents to us. I mean, one of the things that I'd like to talk about, I think, for the FCO is, as we develop, as Carl mentioned, a digital strategy, are some of the key challenges that we have. It's obvious in some respects, particularly in news gathering, what the benefits of social media are and what opportunity it provides. But there are definitely sort of really interesting challenges for foreign ministries in how to make sense of all this information. How to develop open policy, that's something that we're really looking at the moment. How do we bring in all those voices online in a meaningful way into how we formulate policy, how we crowdsource ideas and how we come up with solutions using social media channels. And it's something we've done a bit of. I'll go into a few examples in the Q&A later on, but it's something that we've done in a limited way with, say, the overseas territories. We had a white paper that we produced earlier this year, and we use social media to talk to stakeholders, people who live in the overseas territories, UK nationals, around their views on how the future of the overseas territories. So we've done it in that kind of way. We publish our human rights reports online, and we invite commentary around these reports that we update quarterly. And so that's one area that we're really looking to develop further, and how we really use social media in policy making. Another real key area, of course, is verification, which other people have talked about. For us, it sort of falls into two areas. In a consular crisis, the verification of information is, in some respects, quite straightforward for us, because our real focus is on helping British nationals. So we will take comments, inquiries that come into us via social media. We are able to take at face value. It's a request for help. It's a sort of inquiry about information. It may well be some updated information, and all of that we can look at in the way that we would investigate any other approach to us, in the offline world. And it's provided in crisis. We're just hearing about Japan there, but even in things like Costa Concordia, the earthquakes in Chile, really valuable information about what experiences British nationals are having, how we can usefully help them, and we feedback that in quite quickly into our consular response. So if people are telling us that things are not working, we can use that information to tailor and calibrate our messages and our consular response. So in a consular crisis, we are quite focused. We are able to focus in on what British nationals need and want. In a political crisis, clearly verification is extremely important. We did a lot of work, say, in the Libya crisis, in trying to identify who are the key influencers, who are the people that we should be talking to. And in these situations, really, social media it so lends itself to the core diplomatic tasks, influencing people, your contacts, engaging with people. It's all the stuff that the diplomatic service does, just in another space. So while it presents challenges, in a way, it's hugely, it's quite intuitive for a lot of our diplomats in terms of it just provides a much bigger forum for them to do what they already do. So in the Libya situation, we did daily monitoring of who was saying what, trying to work out who the influencers are and who we might want to engage with beyond the kind of key people that we already were in touch with, who was emerging out of the social media world that we needed to talk to. And verification is a really interesting point. It's not easy, and there's lots of high-profile examples of, during the hurricane situation in America, there's lots of false reporting, but in a way we have processes for already verifying information within foreign ministries, and we can apply some of those processes into the social media sphere as well, and the expertise that we already use to verify information. Another sort of area that we have been looking at is, we've all been talking about the need to communicate, and clearly social media offers us the opportunity to talk to audiences in the 180 countries that we operate in, directly in a way that we didn't have before. But it also has raised issues for us around when not to communicate, when nobody's suggesting that social media replaces traditional diplomacy, one-to-one conversations or analysis and confidential analysis. But it's raised a lot of issues for us around when we communicate. I think it's fair to say we don't think that we're in some sort of race with the media or eyewitnesses to get to be first out with our information. I mean, a real USP for us is that we're a trusted, authoritative voice. And so we need to get into a conversation in a timely fashion, but we need to have something to say. I mean, we need to be adding to the conversation, and we need to have real authority when we do say it. And I think we've got a lot of, I mean, I'm sure you're all aware, a lot of channels that we do that. We've got over 100 Twitter accounts. We've got 3 of our ministers, including William Hague, on Twitter. We've got over 30 ambassadors and officials. And they are our sort of trusted voices. They're our authoritative voices. And we think carefully around when they message, when they intervene, and when they sort of get involved in the social media conversation, and where they add real value. Another sort of issue, obviously, is reputation, the public diplomacy work, and I think social media is completely lends itself to that, getting our voice into the right place. And also, Claire mentioned Syria. Facebook is a really important tool, and we will look at sort of spaces like that to discuss our policy in Syria. We also engage very publicly on controversial issues. So we'll have the Foreign Secretary will do live Twitter Q&As on topical subjects, so that we're open to access and open to criticism as well, and we're prepared to deal with that criticism or discuss those tricky questions. The Foreign Secretary does his Twitter Q&As live. We answer as many questions as we can, and we don't try and shy away from questions that are a little bit awkward or difficult. That's the whole point of the exercise. We also use social media to change a narrative. So, for example, our embassy in Beijing recently ran a discussion on how the internet can be a force for good. And we sort of use Sino Weibo as well for some of that discussion. And, it's an interesting discussion to have in that space. And, the point is to talk about that narrative around, well, is the internet a sort of force for good? And really talk about some of those issues where sometimes the internet is not a force for good, and discuss that openly. So that's something else that we're looking at. Of course, the other sort of challenge for us is how do we engage influencers? How do we engage people in large set pieces? Diplomacy is still about big set pieces. We had a Somalia conference last year in London, but one of the key things that we did with our digital media and that was really reach out to the Somalian diaspora, get them involved in the conversation. What have they got to say? Did they like the ideas and the agenda that was being proposed for that discussion? It's quite interesting, different uses of social media around the world. I mean, you're all experts here, so I don't need to get into that. But in the Middle East, there's a real thirst for political discussion. In Africa, there's a real thirst for sort of practical solutions and using social media to really crowdsource solutions. So again, for us, the real challenge is where are we best using our social media? How are we getting involved in political discussions? How are we getting involved in the solution type discussions? And that's an interesting area for us in the policy formulation. There's a huge community of people out there who are using social media to come up with answers to tricky global problems, and that's something we'd like to tap into more, where appropriate. So I think, it's for us, all the core diplomatic skills, the gathering information, the analysis, the influencing, reputation management, crisis, all things that we've been using social media in lots of different ways to do, and I think it's a hugely exciting area, and it's something that we're evolving lots and lots of, looking at our social media guidance. People have mentioned permissions, and it's a big issue in foreign ministries. Who do you get to do all this stuff? Does everybody do it? Do some people do it? Do you have official accounts? Nori was talking about official versus personal accounts. Clearly it's a blurring between these two, the personal and the professional.